to episode 38 of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. I am joined by Nick Doetkott. Obviously, it's nobody with that much hair. Who else would it be? And then Josh Amiling joins the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh, if you remember, was on the podcast like way back, like week 2 of we ever doing.
You're the first guest we ever had, I think.
Yeah, the beginning of time.
Yeah, very back at the beginning of time. I'm pretty sure Nick had a wedding that weekend, or he had some function that he was attending, and so I needed a secondary guy to replace him, and Mr. Amiling joined the show. So if you hear a recognizable voice, well, it's because he has been here before. So Josh, how you doing?
I'm just chilling. Definitely did not just wake up from a 2-hour nap, Definitely wide awake.
Folks, let me tell you, I went to college with Josh. He was a couple years below me. There is not many people that took fat naps like Josh did. And when I'm talking fat, I'm not talking 20-minute, half hour. And I'm talking sleeps worth of nap.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
I kind of know the feeling now. I work at 4 a.m. and I don't even try it. I just get home and just fall asleep without even trying. I'm like, again? Yeah, anyways, I think I had a wedding that week. That was like the second or third week of the podcast. So you took my place. They've probably been waiting for you to come back instead of me the whole time. So
they would. I mean, the fans know what they like, and they like Josh, and they don't like Nick. I don't know what to say.
Just haters.
Well, maybe. So, folks, as you can tell, this podcast, we're going to talk about a few different things. Talk about a couple Major League Baseball manager hirings, same for the NBA. And then it's going to be mainly an NFL podcast. We're about halfway through the season now, and we're kind of going to go through some of the standings updates and the storylines that have happened to that. So that'll be the majority of the show. But first, we're going to get into some other sports news and happenings that have gone since then. So starting off, in Major League Baseball, the White Sox, after making a interesting decision and firing their manager, and Rick Renteria, who, let's mention now, is also up for Manager of the Year, is now gone. They bring in, 75-year-old Tony La Russa to be the head coach now. First off, we can all agree Tony La Russa, he's a Hall of Famer. He quite literally is in the Hall of Fame. For a manager, he spent a lot of time in the 70s with the White Sox, a ton of years with the Cardinals, had a lot of success with both of them. So, Josh, you are the guest. I'll start with you. Are you shocked that the White Sox decided to go with Tony La Russa as their manager? Not so much that we don't think he can't be good, but, I mean, the age thing has got to be a little bit of a concern. I don't know. Do you think he can still be that same manager that he was with the Cardinals and White Sox?
It's interesting because on one hand, like the immediate reaction I saw from people was this is a really young team. And then you bring this old guys, they're going to be like a generation gap. I think La Russa will be good enough to at least they'll see him and be like, okay, this guy's good. He knows what he's doing. Like he's got the track record. So I think it'll be really key. Like they might start the season out hot, but when they hit that like first rough stretch, seeing how he reacts to the team and how they react to him. I think he should be fine. He's said the right things so far. And I mean, again, the track record speaks for itself, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that's the thing, nobody is questioning what he brings to the table. He has one World Series. He has what I believe like the third most wins of all time for Major League Baseball. I mean, the guy has been around for a while and has had a lot of success. Nick, are you kind of on Josh's train, or what are you thinking here with hiring?
I'm actually all for it. I know the age is definitely a concern. I mean, yeah, how old is he? 74?
Oh, gosh. Let's see. Tony La Russa.
I think he's 74. 75.
76.
76. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously an older dude. But he's got 3 World Series titles to his credit. 2 different teams he's brought to the World Series and 2 different leagues. He's a White Sox coach in the past, so I mean, a lot of fans probably like him. The older fans who remember. I mean, I don't see why not. Well, granted, I don't know why they got rid of Renteria in the first place. That to me, that was a big mistake. But I mean, put I'd rather put my eggs in one basket for La Russa, given his regardless of age, rather than some rando. So I mean, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Josh, we had talked about in the past about why we thought Renteria was let go. It may have been player issues, didn't get along with some guys. I mean, they made the playoffs, pretty solid team. Do you think, what do you think was the reason why the White Sox said, hey, thanks for taking us to the playoffs, Rick, but sorry about it?
Yeah, like the only reason I can think of is that it had to be something internal because either that or maybe they saw La Russa as just like so much better, but I don't know if you can say that after how long was Renteria there? Not that long, right?
Wasn't too long, no, only a few
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, and he got them there and they were successful beforehand, and like this is the first year you can really say like they were a really complete team. It has to be internal or something, and something might come out, probably won't. But that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Again, I think it's going to be all for speculation. Maybe one of those things that we just won't know, and we'll have to keep speculating about. Another AL Central move: Detroit Tigers bringing in former Houston Astros manager AJ Hinch. Obviously, he's got a lot of baggage with him. I think me personally, I like this for Detroit. Well, especially for AJ Hinch, because he's going to a team that doesn't get a lot of publicity. And I think that's a great thing for him.
Exactly what I was going to say.
He's not going to the Yankees. He's not going to a big market team where the cameras are going to be on him 24/7. Going to a team that, one, isn't as good, so they're not going to get pressed for that. And they just typically, even if they, like they aren't good right now, I still don't think they'd be getting a lot of press. So I like this. I do think AJ Hinch is a heck of a manager. From what everything the Houston Astros players were saying, obviously take what they say with a grain of salt now. But he seemed to get along with a lot of those guys, and they liked him. Nick, do you like this for Detroit bringing in AJ Hinch?
I do, and I was pretty much going to say exactly what you said. I think Hinch is a good manager. I mean, yeah, the new signs, whatever, but you still have. I mean, they still were clearly a good team, and it was under him where they became that. Not saying it's all because of him, but I mean, he clearly had some success there, and he had a large part to do with the success they had. And like he also said, Detroit's not the smallest city, but it's not your New York Mets or Yankees or Boston Red Sox or Dodgers or even Giants or Nationals. It's not a very big market compared to those teams, and it's not a real talked about team, especially with them being in the dumpster the last couple of years. So he's just going to have, I think it's just going to be kind of as smooth sailing as he can ask for. All the pressure is only going to be for him to win, he's not going to be in the spotlight and have to, prove everybody wrong every day in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Josh, I'm assuming you're kind of on the same wagon as there. What do you think as far as AJ Hinch going to Detroit?
Yeah, like again, small market, it's all good. Like he can just hide there basically from the media and everything. And I think another thing too is he's a good fit because when he joined the Astros, that's when they were really young, and the Tigers, they have to be young because they're bad, so they just sold off all their old guys. But yeah, we'll see and I kind of agree with you, Lucas. I think he's a good manager. I mean, for what I've seen, he does good. We'll just have to see if, if he got boosted by trash cans or not. But, yeah, he'll just
they
go
got
there.
Trash cans in Detroit.
He'll just go there and we'll see how it works out for him.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how he does. Again, he'll probably fly under the radar quite a bit. And Detroit is one of those teams where, besides being bad, I don't really think they have an identity is who they are. Like Miguel Cabrera is on the freaking last leg of his career.
Right.
Besides that, what direction are they going? They brought up a couple guys at the end of last year. Casey Mize pitched a little bit. So maybe he can help turn it around. Obviously, one player, and especially a pitcher, isn't gonna completely turn things around, just a step in the right direction. But we'll have to see how Detroit does. AJ Hinch, again, a very players manager, and maybe that's someone that they need there. So we'll have to see how that turns out for Detroit. Moving over to the NBA, National Basketball Association. He's got a different hat for the occasion here. Josh Amiling always stays
draft
prepared.
night right here.
Yeah, going to play for the Miami Heat, Mini Pacquiao here. But
Yes,
so obviously the Houston Rockets are out Mike D'Antoni, bringing in Steven Silas as head coach. Obviously, he's assistant coach for the Dallas Mavericks for a little bit. A huge reason a lot of people are saying is why Luka Doncic has really exploded onto the scene. A huge part of it has been because of Steven Silas. Kind of, he looks at things differently. Has different offensive mindsets. So, Josh, where I know you're wearing the Miami Heat hat, but we're talking about the Houston Rockets here. Do you like this hiring for the Houston Rockets? I don't think a lot of people maybe knew who this guy was, and he kind of came out of the blue.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because he's coming into a situation with the Rockets where you have an established team with veterans like Westbrook and Harden. And Silas, he's gotten like a bunch of former players who he coached said that, yeah, he's a good guy. He knows his X's and O's, but a lot of it was with younger guys. Like he was, again, like you said, Doncic, but he also was credited a lot with coaching up Steph Curry, coaching up Kemba Walker, making Jeremy Lamb an average NBA player. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see because he's been around for 20 years, but again, just as an assistant. So on one hand, he's seen a lot, so he should know a lot. But on the other hand, this is his first time as a head coach. So I think he should be fine. And I really want to see what he does X's and O's wise with Harden and Westbrook and those guys. But I don't know. We'll see. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think a team that has James Harden and Russell Westbrook, that's like when everyone says like, well, LeBron kind of runs a team and and the coach doesn't really have to do too much. And in like most cases, that's correct. I do think, however, you do need a coach out there to kind of, ride the waves a little bit. You still need subs. And obviously, LeBron James is not on the Houston Rockets. So you actually do have to manage these guys and kind of, put them where they need to be, Nick. What do you think about this? You like this for Houston?
I mean, I'll be completely honest. I didn't really know enough about this guy to like have a, real good take. But I mean, all it really comes down to is how he's going to manage everybody besides Harden. Harden is going to give you his numbers. Harden is a very, very good player. Harden's going to get you some wins. But that nothing's going to take this team over the top unless the supporting cast steps up and really takes some weight off Harden's shoulders. And can a coach do that? I don't know. But if he has to find a way to do that, that's what his one job is. Can he do it? As you said, they think he's a big reason why Doncic had that much success. Well, who knows? Maybe he'll elevate Westbrook's game a bit, or maybe he'll do that to another youngster. So we'll see. But I mean, as for his job and what's going to be asked of him, I think that's all that needs to be done.
Now, this is a question: can the Houston Rockets, now with Steven Silas, obviously, there's a lot of unknown with him because, like Josh was saying, assistant coach. This is his first gig as being a head coach. Can he be the guy that gets Houston Rockets over the hump and get them into the finals? I mean, I'm going to start this off by saying no, and I don't think it's necessarily because that he isn't going to be capable of doing it. I just think the Western Conference is so incredibly loaded that it's going to be hard to do it. And I'm that's kind of what I'm saying is Silas, I'm sure he's going to be a great coach, and I'm sure Houston will have a lot of success. But like D'Antoni has found out in the past when he was the coach, is that you're going to have to go through the Warriors, you're going to have to go through the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Mavericks are a solid team, the Jazz. I mean, there's a lot of really solid teams in the West. So, Nick, I guess I'll give it to you first. Do you think he can be the guy if everything is advertised with Silas, what we've been hearing? Can he be the guy to get him over the hump and into the finals?
I doubt it, and it's not really because of him. I just don't know if this roster can. For like I said, for years it's just been Harden's been asked to do so much, and now it's almost like that's the way the team's constructed. It's just let Harden do it and try to play defense and make some 3-pointers when you get the ball. And when you got to go against the Clippers, the Lakers, and I think the Mavericks are going to be really good this next year, and some other teams in the West, I just don't think it's going to get the job done. Plus, who knows how good the Golden State's going to be if they actually get healthy. So I don't think so, at least not in the immediate future, no.
Josh?
And one more thing. I'm not reading much into it, but, with Daryl Morey there in Philly, apparently they think, Harden might go to Philadelphia anyways, so we'll see. But I would doubt it.
Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a cross-sport reference. Like Bill Belichick is like greatest coach of all time in the NFL. But look at his roster right now. He doesn't have the horses. He can't do anything right now.
He doesn't have Brady.
He doesn't have receivers either. There's nothing there. And all your opt-outs. Anyways, back to Silas. Like, I think we might see improvements like X's and O's wise. We might see something okay, they're doing some cool strategy that like will get them maybe a higher seed, might get them into the second round, maybe finally past the second round. But you run into the Lakers and it doesn't matter. You can't X's and O's the Lakers. You can't X's and O's the Warriors when they're at full. And like Dallas, he runs into his old team. Luka might just drop another 40 on him. So I don't think they have enough. And again, nothing against him, but you got to do what you got to do with what the cards you're dealt. So
yeah, I think we're on a grade. I don't think it's anything that Silas won't be capable of doing. I just think the path to get there is going to be very difficult. But anyways, Brooklyn folks, they're getting together an all-star squad, not on the court but off the court. Steve Nash, already their head coach, bringing in Mike D'Antoni as an assistant coach here. I don't know. I mean, Josh, again, I'll start with you here. Do you think this can work? I mean, do you think it's going to be more of, obviously Steve Nash is the head coach, but D'Antoni's had a lot of head coaching experience. So do you think it'll be a lot of, Steve Nash will make the plays, but, D'Antoni's going to be in his ear talking a lot? How do you think that's going to work out?
I think because of their past relationship with Nash playing under D'Antoni, I think they'll have a good enough relationship where they won't be stepping on each other's toes. At least I hope so, because I want to see a 7 seconds or less with this team. But yeah, I think like a similar situation, kind of like with the Golden State Warriors, like not necessarily that is the same comparison, but Mike Brown's been an assistant there for a while, and he was a head coach, and he's a head coach. Right. But he's not stepping on Steve Kerr's toes. They have a good relationship there. So I think this should be fine. And again, like I said, the previous relationship there. And I think D'Antoni realizes that, I need to take a step back because it hasn't worked. Like, it didn't work with the Suns, unfortunately. It didn't work with the Rockets. So maybe he needs to step back, see it from a different angle, and say, okay, this is how I can, I'm assuming he's going to want to take the next head coaching job that comes his way. He's going to see this from a different perspective. So when he gets his next head coaching job, he can finally be like, all right, I know what I did wrong. I can come at it with this different angle, and then we'll see how it goes.
Nick, what are you thinking?
I love it. D'Antoni's never, made the finals, but he's always had some really good teams, especially really good offenses. And, that might not be enough, but if I can add D'Antoni and his offensive repertoire to my staff, I'm not going to pass it up. And, obviously him and Steve Nash are familiar with each other as, he coached Nash for a while. And, he mixed Nash's point guard history with D'Antoni's, high power shooting offense philosophy. With the star power they could potentially have on offense, I think it bodes well. Obviously you still got the defense to address, but I trust Nash, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens as far as Brooklyn. You know, Kyrie Irving at times can be a bit of a head case and kind of a drama queen. At times, meaning all the time. But it'll be interesting to see how that affects Steve Nash and D'Antoni here. Obviously, D'Antoni had a lot of coaching experience. Steve Nash, not so much head coaching. He has been a part of some solid Warriors teams that he had a lot of significant input in there. And I mean, everyone knows his career, a Hall of Fame career. So we'll see what happens here. It'll be interesting with Brooklyn to see how both of these guys can name the two-headed KD and Kyrie Irving monster there. So a quick piece of news from college football. This has obviously been a little bit old now, but Wisconsin quarterback Graham Mertz is supposed to be missing dang near a month as we move over to the ESPN college football here. Dang near a month with having COVID. Now, it does not look like that Wisconsin will be playing their upcoming game against Purdue, I believe, is who they're scheduled to play. They're not going to be playing that. Wisconsin, as far as quarterbacks have gone in the past, they haven't found a guy that can get them to the next spot. And everything pointed looking like Mertz may have been that guy for them, and now he's going to be missing some time. It may work in their favor. They may not be playing any games by the time he comes back, so it may not hurt him at all. Nick, I'll start with you on this, shaking your head. What do you have to say?
So Clemson loses the future number 1 overall draft pick, Trevor Lawrence, to COVID. And they got to play against Notre Dame, who's probably going to beat them and potentially knock them out of the playoffs, or out of the playoff standings. And Wisconsin just gets to not play. You kidding me? Like,
yeah.
Okay, do they have more people on COVID? Maybe. I don't know. But seriously, they're just going to not play. So what? They're going to play 6 games this year because their boy Graham Mertz can't play? Give me a break.
Josh, what are you thinking?
I will say Wisconsin, they've had an outbreak. So like you said, their game this week is Purdue against canceled. Last week they were supposed to play in Nebraska, but then like along with Mertz, the head coach had COVID, and then they were down to like their 4th string quarterback because the other guy had COVID, and then like this week they had like 20 guys test positive. So it doesn't even look, they might not even play Michigan, which means that Mertz is going to miss 0 games. But then again, the Big Ten doesn't have any bye weeks built in. They have like no flexibility. So Wisconsin has to make up 3 games with 0 weeks of flexibility. I don't know how that's going to work.
They're not going to.
Exactly.
They'll play like 5 games, and at that point, they don't even play in the playoffs.
Exactly. So it doesn't even matter for them. And like for Clemson should be fine because they still have a really good quarterback. They have like the 2nd best quarterback in the ACC as their backup.
I think Notre Dame will beat them.
I mean, chaos. Why not? I want to see a quick aside. I want to see like a small school like Cincinnati make it, but whatever. But yeah, Graham Mertz, it just sucks because he came in and he basically threw like 1 incompletion, and it's like, all right, you got to sit out for a month. And the big thing too is like they stick them in like a hotel room or something, so he's not even working out. If I remember correctly, so when he comes back, he's not going to be in game shape necessarily. So. Yeah,
that's an interesting thing to look at too. Wisconsin, much like a lot of teams, COVID has kind of screwed things up for them a bit, but we'll have to see what happens here. Did you guys have any other further comments? I guess not so much Wisconsin, but college sports as well. I'm sure Nick probably has a thing or two to talk about his.
Yeah, my college football season's already ruined, so let's just not.
Okay. Josh, you want to plug in your Washington Huskies here?
I'll just say the Huskies. I don't know because I don't know who our quarterback is because like we have like 4 potential starters and we've had 0 practice time because COVID. So I don't know. Our defense should be fine. Our special team should be fine. Our running backs are fine. Our wide receivers are great. I don't know what the quarterback. So yeah, fun times.
Oregon will win the Pac-12 anyway. So.
They probably will. They're the best team.
They're the only good team.
No, they're like, it's like 1A, and then everyone else is like here, and then there's UCLA. It's like down there.
Pac-12 is terrible at everything the last 4 years. No offense, but
Hey, Olympic sports. That's what we put our hat on.
the Pac-12 is an embarrassment to the Power Five.
No,
You're gonna defend yourself, Josh?
No, he's right, because our commissioner, like, he puts all the money into the wrong things, and he keeps the money for himself, and then so like everything else, it's not fun. Yeah, that's how it is. But at least, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
At least you got Oregon.
I get to watch football until 11:30 at night. So
can't complain about that. We're gonna make the transition now into some NFL, folks. We're at the mid-season now, bringing out the Seattle Seahawks hat, folks. Josh Amiling.
How old is that hat? Holy cow!
I have no idea. My dad just found it like a week ago, sitting in our garage, and like it still had the tag on it. So I guess he bought it one day and just never brought it out of the bag.
Love to see it. But anyways, so NFL standings update, some storylines going on. So we're just going to go division by division and highlight some things with each team here. So we're going to start out in the AFC East. Boy, is this an open division. The Buffalo Bills currently are out on top, 6-2. Miami 4-3. Patriots 2-5, and the Jets 0-8. They are the only team in the NFL that does not have at least 100 points for this year. 94.
They might go 0-17. They're so bad they might lose more than you possibly can.
I mean, they are so bad. So bad.
The fact I picked this team to win like 6 games just makes me think I'm an idiot.
I don't even remember how many games I picked them to win, but I hope it wasn't more than like 3 because they are awful.
Because they're so bad. They're so bad. Like, there's not a good player on that team.
There isn't
one, and they got rid of him.
They've traded them.
Jamal Adams.
Oh, man. So, Josh, I guess we'll start with you, AFC East here. As far as things look right now, pre-open division, the Bills are out on top. They're 6-2. Miami's 4-3. Do you see the Bills coming out on top in this division, or do my Dolphins have a chance?
I'm still gonna pick the Bills, but because I had it, like I've done stuff. I had the Bills 1 and the Patriots 2 until like Cam Newton just fell off a cliff. So, and now seeing, I mean, the Dolphins defense, people, and including myself, I'll admit it, like underestimated. I saw like the secondary, I'm like, oh, that's a good secondary, but all around, it's just a solid defense. So, again, how wide open it is and how like Josh Allen can be fantastic one game or he'll look like Josh Allen the other game. I think right now I'll still go the Bills number 1, but I might put Miami at 2. I feel more confident in them than the Patriots, and like I'm not going to talk about the Jets. So,
yeah, the Jets. Nick gets to hear my rants about the Jets and Adam Gase all the time, so we don't really have to talk about him. And you on the podcast, listeners too, know how my feelings on Adam Gase. We don't need to get into that, Nick. What do you think here? Buffalo end of the season 6-2 right now, sitting pretty. I know you've been talking pretty high on Miami these past week or so. I've been liking it.
Well, first off, I picked the Patriots to win the division. Well, they ain't getting anything better than 3rd. Cam Newton's trash. That team's nothing without Brady, and that roster sucks anyways. Meanwhile, the Jets suck worse, though, so don't worry, New England. So you got Miami and Buffalo. I honestly, as of now, would feel more confident in Miami than Buffalo. But being that Buffalo's already 6-2, and I'm pretty sure they beat Miami, right? Or have they not played? Yeah, being that they've already beat Miami once and they're 6-2, I think they'll win the division. But if you ask me who I'm more confident in right now, which team, it's Miami. Their defense has allowed the least amount of points in football. The only reason the Bills are 6-2 is because Josh Allen played really well for 4 weeks, and I totally expected it to not continue, which it hasn't. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been the Josh Allen of the first 3 or 4 weeks. We'll see what happens. If Tua's bad, you can always go back to Fitzpatrick too, so I wouldn't worry too much. And if Tua's good, then look out. I'm telling you, Miami's going to win 10 games. They are going to. Their next they could win their next 7 games. Their schedule is a cupcake from here on out. It's very, very easy. And I wouldn't want to play this team in the playoffs because you never want to play a defense like that. So I'm picking the Bills only because their position right now is really good. They're a game and a half up with a win over Miami. But I'm more confident in Miami, and I think currently right now they're the better team.
Yeah. Tua, I'm excited to see how he does. His first game, obviously, was against the Rams. It was a little rusty. I'm not going to say that surprised me too much. The Rams have a very incredible defense, and a couple of the ones that we scored was off of defense, a couple of the touchdowns that we had. So I do think Tua should go into it. I'm interested to see how they do. We have a game going up against the Cardinals next week. Again, not going to be an easy game.
I'm really looking forward to that game. What time is that game?
3:30 game.
Good. I'm really looking forward to that game because 1, it could be a good game. 2, I really like the Cardinals. I like Miami, and Kyler and Tua. They're 2 of my favorite quarterbacks. So let's get it.
And folks, I want to give all the credit in the world to Josh Amiling because without him, I would not have been able to pronounce Tua's name correctly. Folks, when Tua was still in college at Alabama, I am not kidding you when I say this. I think we were walking somewhere to the car cafeteria. I don't know where it was. The entire walk there and then back, wherever we were going to, he was trying to teach me how to say Tua's last name. I was not getting it. I couldn't understand.
You're a hockey dude and you couldn't pronounce his last name?
I couldn't figure it out, and Josh kept saying, "No, you're saying it wrong." Tunga Vailoa. And now I have it. So Josh, I appreciate you.
I got you, Luke. I don't even remember. I think you were missing like a syllable. I think like you were shortening it, and like I looked at you and I'm like, that's not right. Yeah, I got you.
He's the real MVP, folks. Josh Amiling. But anyways, so AFC East, pretty abysmal. The Jets are awful. I think the only reason they're keeping Adam Gase around at this point is to ensure they have the number 1 overall pick because he's that bad of a coach. So that's my theory of why he hasn't been canned yet.
That's the best take I've heard in a long time.
New England Patriots obviously are pretty bad, so we'll have to see what happens in that division. We will move
over.
It
was all Bill the whole time, It wasn't anything to do with Brady, that system quarterback, bunch of idiots.
We will move over to the AFC West now. This division kind of going out as expected. Chiefs 7-1, first in the division. Raiders sitting at 4-3, Broncos 3-4, Chargers 2-5. Before we get into that division as a whole, the Chargers did trade a member of their secondary, Desmond King, to the Titans for a 6th-round pick. Josh, I'll start with you on this one. Are you surprised that the Titans got King for only a 6th?
Of course I am, because his value, he's an all-pro corner and also all-pro punt returner, and like I know returns have been a little flying under the radar for the past few years, but having an all-pro back there, like that really makes a difference. I guess my only thing is that, like, especially at the trade deadline or getting close to it, and like the NFL, it's so weird with trades where it doesn't match up value-wise. And I don't know what the deal was with King. Maybe they just wanted him out, so they just like, okay, we'll take whatever we can get. So, but yeah, he's definitely worth more than a 6th-round pick. So,
Heck, I think you'd be better off keeping him and just hope somehow, some way, you turn your 2-5 into a playoff record rather than just getting a 6th-rounder for him. I mean, that's just an embarrassment. That just makes you look bad.
They don't, if they aren't blowing as many games as they have been, I think Desmond King is still on the roster.
Not to mention it's the Titans' 6th-round pick, which is going to be like, at the very end of the 6th round. So I don't get it. But still better than Bill O'Brien's trade. So
that's for dang sure. So that was kind of the main trade that happened there. But AFC West as a whole, I think we can all agree Chiefs are going to win that division. I don't think there's too much question behind that. But, Broncos 21-point comeback against the Chargers. Raiders have been sneaking out a few wins.
Okay.
With the expanded playoffs, can either of those two teams make it?
I'll just jump into this. First of all, 21-point comeback, impressive, but the Chargers have blown a 14-point lead in 4 straight games, so it was against the Chargers, so who cares? Broncos, they ain't making the playoffs. Chargers, they ain't making the playoffs. We all knew the Chiefs were going to win. We all still know the Chiefs are going to win. I still think they're the best team in the NFL, although I'm really high in Pittsburgh as well. But the Raiders are the one surprise. I did not think they'd be this good. I really didn't think they'd be good at all. And honestly, like, at times, they look like they can beat anybody. You know, they're Kansas City's only loss. If Derek Carr plays well, this team can really hang with anybody. So I like the Raiders, and I do think they're going to sneak into the playoffs.
Josh, what do you think? Raiders sneak into the playoffs? Maybe a Broncos team or what?
I don't see the Broncos just because their defense is still a little suspect to me. And Drew Lock can look amazing one quarter, and then the very next quarter he'll throw like 3 interceptions or something like that. So I don't trust him. And plus their running backs, they keep cycling through guys because of injuries and everything with the Broncos. The Raiders, I was high on them at the beginning of the season just because I went in, I'm thinking Derek Carr is playing for his job, or at least that's how it felt like, because John Gruden goes through his quarterbacks like Kleenexes. So, and he's played really well, and I think he's finally understanding Gruden's system, and he's got weapons around him. And like Henry Ruggs, like as a rookie, and he hasn't played that much because of injuries, but when he's in there, teams just have to respect his speed. So like you just have to cover him. They just send him deep, and that opens up all the other guys underneath, including Darren Waller, who again, amazing story there. And their defense is just all around. They're just solid. So, I mean, if they weren't, unfortunately, they have to play the Chiefs, but they did beat them once already. So I don't think they're going to win the division. But I think I can see them sneaking in.
It'll be
For
interesting.
that team, though, you don't want to get behind because Josh Jacobs will just run it down your throat. And as you mentioned, they got a good defense. So the Raiders, as I said with the Dolphins, those two teams, I would not want to play come playoff time. And I do think both of them are going to make it.
Yeah, I am interested to see what happens there as far as that goes. I'm not sure a lot of people, maybe outside of Josh, thought that Vegas would be playing as well as they're now. I say 4-3 as well as they are because I don't think anyone at this point probably thought they were going to be an above 500 team.
They're a good 4-3. I mean,
they are a very solid 4-3 team. Their point differential isn't too awful: 187 points for, 203 points against. So we'll have to see how that happens. John Gruden, they gave him that big 10-year contract for a reason. And it wasn't to fix it all in 1 year, but the way that they have been playing the last, season and a half, I almost said Oakland, Vegas might surprise a few folks. They might surprise a few folks. Quick, before we go into the AFC North, I did want to touch on the Jets as far as this. I forgot to bring it up. About last week or so, Roddy White came out and said that Trevor Lawrence should go back to school if the Jets have the number 1 overall pick. First off, I know Trevor Lawrence is not going to say, hell yeah, I agree with you, I'm going back to Clemson. But what do you guys think? I mean, honestly, if the Jets have the number 1 overall pick, which at this point I would be very surprised if they didn't get it, I know Lawrence wouldn't, but would it be smart for him to go back to school for another year to see if another team can maybe suck more than them the next season? Nick, what do you think?
I mean, you hear this every year, not only in football, but I don't know how I feel about it because, honestly, yeah, it's still your choice. If you don't want to play for a team, you shouldn't have to. It's like that's the whole point of free agency. You get to pick. Well, as a draft pick, you don't really get to pick. But if you can avoid somebody, I don't see, it's at one point it kind of sounds like not the right thing to do, but at the same time, it's well, it's your decision. But if you can make the NFL, just go to the NFL. The last thing you need, especially in football, is to get injured and then never make it at all. So you can go, just go. And it might sound crazy, but I'm not even convinced the Jets would draft him. I think they would, but knowing the Jets, who even knows? So, and regardless, now I know the Jets are an embarrassment, but regardless, the number one overall pick is not going to be a good team and next year either. So I say just go and hope it all works out. Or you can just pull the Eli Manning. He declared, but then he just said, I'm not going to play for you. And then he got traded. So,
yeah. Yeah, I am interested to see what happens as far as that situation goes. A lot of people want to throw a lot of blame on Sam Darnold. Is he Patrick Mahomes? No. And no one's trying to say that. I do think Darnold is a solid quarterback, but he can only do so much with what has been given in front of him. And he has had solid players. I get that. But when you have a head coach that is as incompetent as Adam Gase is, he's not going to bring out the best in you. So, Josh, I'm assuming you're kind of on the same path as Nick was saying. What do you think as far as that goes?
Yeah, Adam Gase, terrible. But yeah, for Trevor himself, I just think because football, like one moment you're good, and then the next moment you're Dak Prescott, and you're just trying to scramble, and right before you can slide, you get your ankle shattered. Yeah. So Trevor, just go get your money, and yeah, just like Nick said, and I know people might hate him for it, but I don't care. Trevor doesn't care. Go get your millions. Go get drafted. Let's assume the Jets get it. They're gonna get the number one pick. They draft him. You just force your way out. Just say, I'm not going to play for you. What are they going to do? So just go get your money. Just go be smart. Like, go back to college. And yeah, like injuries, maybe for some reason he just falls off a cliff and he just doesn't get drafted high. Just get the money now.
And one more thing. I know the Jets are, abysmal. And it's obviously not a good place to go. But, the Bengals looked pretty terrible last year, too. They were 0-10. And they don't look that bad right now with Burrow. So, I think Burrow's situation looks a whole lot better now than it did, 8 weeks ago or when he was drafted. Now, the Bengals, I'm not sure Jets territory, but they were pretty bad, too. So, I mean, things get better.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens here as far as that goes. So we'll hop into the AFC North now. Pittsburgh undefeated currently, top of the division, 7-0, behind an extremely solid defensive core there. Big Ben back to, well, I don't want to say his old form, but he's the quarterback that they needed that they didn't have last year because he was hurt. Ravens sitting behind him at 5-2, Browns 5-3, Bengals 2-5-1. I will say for a 2-5-1 team though, the Bengals have been looking. They've been looking pretty solid. The defense has not been the best, but they've been putting up points. They have been putting up points, and you got to give a lot of credit to Joe Burrow. And T. Higgins has been a huge pick for him this year. And, it's interesting to see how they'll do. Before we get into the teams individually, obviously the Bengals, and Josh, this is where you'll come into play, traded Carlos Dunlap to your Seattle Seahawks for a backup O-lineman, B.J. Finney, and a 7th-round pick. How did you pull this off? That's my question.
Well, we pulled it off because after their latest loss, the Bengals, so that's like 2 weeks ago now, Dunlap was fed up and he put his house up on the market like minutes after the game. And so the Bengals realized, oh, okay, yeah, we're not getting anything for him. And thank goodness I've been begging the Seahawks to go get somebody for pass rush, and we did.
Needed somebody. They still
exactly.
Need like
we have a 7th-round tight end rushing the passer right now. Really? We converted him. It's terrible, but yeah, we got Dunlap just because. Thank goodness John Schneider, our GM, like he moves all the time, and he's like, okay, I see this, let's go get him. And Dunlap, man, like I followed him immediately on social media just to see what he's like, and he's more than happy to be. He's like, let's go. I'm excited. He's posting his picture. He's smiling. He's like sending stuff from like fans and everything. Like, that's awesome. So thank goodness we have him. For the Bengals themselves, I mean, I guess get something.
Yeah.
Help rebuild with a 7th-round pick and a really bad offensive. I don't know. For the Bengals, you just had to get him out. So.
Right. Yeah, I do like this, Nick. I'm assuming, obviously it is not going to completely fix the Seahawks' defensive struggles, especially on the front line, but it's a step in the right direction.
I mean, anything helps. I think it's debatable, but I think the Seahawks are probably the best team in the NFC. I don't know if they're the most well-rounded, but right now they're probably the best team in the NFC with the worst pass rush in football and a not very good offensive line. So even helping out a little bit is just going to make them better. So, I mean, I love it. You pretty much gave up nothing. I mean, nothing for Carlos Dunlap. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I like it. Odell Beckham also tore his ACL, is going to be out for the rest of the season for the Cleveland Browns. Nick, I'll start with you here. Do you think that this will be as big of a loss as a lot of people say it will? Now, obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. has been around the league for a little bit now, and he has had success. But it seems like, and it's tough to say, but I think they may be okay without him. What do you think?
Well, I mean, his stats as a Brown haven't even been that good, anyways. So
Yeah.
their passing game in general is not very good. They win games by running the football, and that's why they beat the bad teams and they don't beat the good teams. So will they miss him that much? I mean, yeah, you'll miss him a little bit. He's Odell Beckham, but I don't think he's quite as good as I once thought he was. And their offense, as far as passing, just isn't very good. So I don't think it's going to affect him that much. I mean, this is a team that'll beat the bad teams and they'll lose to the good teams. They're the absolute perfect example of mediocrity. So, and I don't think this will change much.
Josh, what are you thinking? Is Odell being out with a torn ACL going to hurt him a lot?
I mean, it's still gonna hurt because, like, yeah, he hasn't really passed the eye test. He definitely isn't. He isn't what he was when he was in New York. But again, like the stats, like at least you can take something from the stats. He still like put up 1,000 yards last year with like a messed up calf and everything, but he just hasn't looked the same. And I know like some people were pointing out, like, man, look at what the Browns did last Sunday. They scored only 6 points, but they played in 35-mile-per-hour winds. I don't care if you're Patrick Mahomes. That's hard to throw in. So I think they should be fine. It's still gonna hurt, of course, but they have a bunch of other targets around. They're starting to get their 4 receiving tight ends. Finally, they're using them. So, and Chubb's supposed to come back soon, so they might lose a little bit in the passing game, but they have other weapons for Baker to throw to.
Yeah. Also, interesting to bring up the wind. Was that just like 100-mile-an-hour winds every single places last Sunday?
Seemed that way.
I don't know.
It's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
Baltimore Ravens adding potential depth. Dez Bryant signed him to the practice squad now. Josh, I'll start with you here. At some point, I mean, I'm assuming, do you think Dez Bryant makes it to the active roster and can become an integral part of this offense for Baltimore?
I have no idea, and the reason is we just haven't seen Dez play in forever. And I mean, the last time we saw him play, he looked okay, but I don't know. And I think on the surface, it looks like he'll help because they don't really have a big body wide receiver, and that's what he's supposed to be. Jump up and get jump balls and everything. And practice is practice, but he looks fine. Maybe not immediately, but like postseason run, or like late season, postseason run, you bring him up, he'll make a play or two there. And I mean, they didn't sign him for that much, and if you just get 1 or 2 plays out of him and just tip the scales your direction, I mean, that's more than enough from what you signed him for.
Nick, what do you think?
I mean, he hasn't played football in probably like 3 years in the NFL level, so he's obviously going to be rusty. And will he make an impact? Who knows? I mean, yeah, he signed a practice squad deal, but he's obviously going to make it up. He's not going to sign not going to come out of retirement just to be on the practice squad. So I mean, we'll see. The guy's a touchdown machine, or was. So the Ravens' offense is kind of just spread the ball around and then get down to the 10 and see who catches Lamar's touchdown pass. He only throws for 200 a game, but he gets, like, even last year, he threw for like 225 yards, but he'd have 5 touchdowns. Well, Bryant's a touchdown machine, so it could work out. But we'll see, because honestly, they need something. Because I know Baltimore looks good; they went 15-1 last year, but I don't trust this team at all. They're the worst really good team I've ever seen. Like, I have no confidence in them when they play the Steelers, Chiefs, Like, even if they play the Titans, I'm not sure. Like, Jackson's good, but come playoff time, he hasn't won yet, and I don't trust this team at all against the good teams. So they need something to put them over the hump. I don't think this will be it, but it might.
Yeah, and Josh, I guess I'll just go back to you here. As far as the AFC North goes, obviously Pittsburgh's out on top, 7-0. Ravens 5-2, Browns 5-3. I'm not going to really talk about the Bengals because I don't think they're going to be making a playoff run this year. But can you see a team, Baltimore Ravens, Browns, potentially catching Pittsburgh and passing them in the division this year?
I mean, it's going to be hard because the Steelers did take that game this last Sunday against the Ravens. I still think the Ravens are pretty good, but again, just I don't know what happens to their offense when they go up against the top tier teams, and the Steelers are one of those top tier teams. Because the Steelers, again, they went like 9-7 last year without Ben. They had Duck Hodges playing for them, and he's not good. They had Mason Rudolph playing; they're not good. Or maybe they're 8-8. Doesn't matter. They were above 5-11 with that defense, and now you added Roethlisberger back. Roethlisberger's angry. Juju Smith-Schuster's woken up. Chase Claypool, love that dude, and he's come out of kind of nowhere because not many people were talking about him in the draft for some reason. But yeah, I mean, I think it's Pittsburgh. It's the Chiefs, and then it's Pittsburgh in the AFC.
Totally agree. I mean, Pittsburgh 7-0. They look. I mean, if somebody wants to say they're the best team in football, I mean, it's hard to argue that. I would still go with Chiefs. I think the Chiefs have been and will be the whole year. But Pittsburgh's probably the second best team in football. I just look back at my predictions. I did only have them at 10-6, but like after 3 weeks, I thought Pittsburgh's going to win that division. So maybe I just seen how easy Baltimore's schedule looked, and I don't know. I picked them, but I mean, I have all the confidence in the world Pittsburgh's going to win this division. I honestly don't see any other result. They're better than Baltimore. They're 2 games up on Baltimore. They've already beat Baltimore. Pittsburgh will probably be 11-0. Their next 3 games are cakewalks. They should be at least 10-0. This team, I'm not saying they will. I highly doubt it, but this team has a chance to go 16-0. Their schedule is not that hard. And with a defense like that, you don't have to score that many points, especially against bad teams, to win. So Pittsburgh's probably going to get the number 1 in the AFC. That's what's going to be the story here. Not who's going to win that division. It's will Pittsburgh finish better than Kansas City, I think, is the question. Yeah. And it's really important this year because there's only the 1 bye. So we'll see. Pittsburgh and Kansas City, I'm very confident that's going to be the AFC Championship unless Tennessee would make it.
Yeah. I do think the Browns, obviously, I don't think they'll win the division, nor do I think the Ravens will. I do think the Browns will make the playoffs, especially with the expanded playoffs. I think they'll be one of the lower-level teams to make it as of right now, and I don't have my projections preseason of what I had picked them to do, but I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? You think Cleveland potentially makes the playoffs?
I think they'll probably get that 3rd wild card. Because I think the AFC is the better division, the better conference this year for once. But they're not necessarily that deep. Like, they got really good teams in Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Tennessee. But let's just say, so Pittsburgh will win the division, Kansas City, let's say Tennessee, and then Buffalo. Well, I see Miami and the Raiders, and then really the only other 2 teams that even really have a shot are the Colts and the Browns. Because, the Broncos, Chargers, Jets, Patriots, Bengals, Jaguars, Texans, they're all out of it. And the Browns already beat the Colts. So that alone might get them in.
Yeah. I am interested to see. Josh, you have something to say there?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think they're better than all the other middling teams, I think, or they're like at least at the top of that. So they could sneak in, but I don't know, because there's some games where they look amazing, and I've said this for a bunch of teams, but that's how a bunch of teams are right now. Some games they look amazing, other games they just fall flat in their face. So they just need some things to break for them, and I think they might sneak in. It's probably gonna come down to like the final 2 weeks, and like they'll need some things to break their way to get in. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it though.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out. Obviously, with the expanded playoffs, a lot of things are wide open. We'll have to see what happens there. But AFC South final final American Football Conference division. This is a division that very top heavy. The teams that are at the bottom, though, are very bad. Tennessee Titans sitting at 5-2, Colts also at 5-2, and then the Texans and Jaguars both at 1-6 apiece here. I want to start, Nick. I'll start with you here first. I want to start with the bad teams. Now, not so much Jacksonville. I think a lot of people kind of thought that they were going to be playing kind of how they are. I mean, I had them going 0-16. Obviously, they won one game so far, and it was against the Colts.
I told you if they'd win a game, it would be that first game of the year.
But the Texans, I didn't think they were going to be very good, and I've obviously been right so far. Nick, do you think did you think that the Texans would be playing as bad as they are right now?
Oh, heck no. I mean, I didn't think they'd be quite as good without D-Hop, but I think I had them second in the division and getting a wild card yet. I mean, you still got Watson and Fuller and, some running backs. I didn't expect much from their defense, but you still got, some bigger name guys over there. I'm shocked they're this bad. I mean, obviously, we don't think very highly of Bill O'Brien, but I didn't think it would be this bad, no. And honestly, with this division, the only team I think that's any good is the Titans. I know the Colts are all right. I still haven't bought in on them because I don't trust Phillip Rivers.
Buy in on the
Colts,
but
that defense is pretty good, so we'll see. But Tennessee, I don't know how on earth they just lost to the Bengals. I have no idea. But with that being said, I have all the confidence that they'll probably go 12-4, 11-5, win this division. So,
Josh, what do you think? First, comments on the Texans. Did you expect them to be as bad as they are? And then number two, as far as the Colts and Titans, who comes out on top there?
I will say I pulled up my preseason predictions. I had the Texans either going 13-3 or 10-6 because I believe in Deshaun Watson that much. I mean, he still played great, but I didn't think they'd be this bad. This collapse is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like, they lost the first week to Kansas City. I'm like, okay, all right, Kansas City. And then they just kept losing and losing.
It wasn't even fair. They started out with, like, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and...
they played Baltimore, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
are you kidding me?
Yeah, but then even then, like, in some of those, they just didn't look competitive in those games. And, like, I think that's the biggest thing. I thought they'd at least be competitive because I said in my preseason stuff, like, yeah, their defense isn't good. Like, they have names, but they're not good on defense. But they have an offense, and Will Fuller stayed healthy for, like, an entire season. That should be good. Is DeAndre Hopkins that good that he's plus 8 wins for this team? I guess so. This is just infuriating, but whatever. For the Colts and the Titans, I was actually higher on the Colts than the Titans just because I saw a lot of regression with the Titans because their defense last year was so good without the best players, and their defense hasn't been that good. And, like, their pass rush is, even with Clowney and all those guys, they're just non-existent. And as a Seahawks fan with no pass rush, consistent pass rush, it's going to kill you. I mean, they just traded for King, so that should help them there. The reason I have the Colts over the Titans is just because I think Rivers has calmed down from, like, the first few weeks of trying to be a gunslinger. He's realized, okay, let's calm it down. I have a defense that can help me. I have weapons I can actually throw to and not try and have to fit it in there. Their offensive line is great. I just have the Colts just slightly just because of their defense. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if the Titans take it because they're the Titans. They're good, too.
I like this. At the end of the games, Rivers is going to give you the game. At the end of the game in Titans games, Derrick Henry's going to run up the clock and win you the game. So I'm all Tennessee. Because Derrick Henry is the best running back in football.
No, he's not.
Get it in your head.
No, he's not. That's a debate for another day. Obviously, we have differing opinions here. But... yeah, I mean, the Colts defense, 136 points allowed, is right up there with some of the least amount of points allowed in the entire NFL this season. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, I've been pretty high on the Colts since day one here this season. I had them going 10-6, I believe. Had the Titans going 13-3. So, they pretty much have to win out and have one game of wiggle room that they can lose. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think at the end of the year, I think the Titans will be out on top. I think Colts will be a few games behind them. But I do think they'll both be in the playoffs. So moving over to the NFC now, we will go into the best division in football in the NFC East here. It is so bad. It is so bad. The Giants, last place, 1-7. Cowboys, second to last, 2-6. Washington football team, 2-5, and the Eagles with a 3-4-1 record is the number one team in this division. Josh, I'm going to start with you here. Carson Wentz, I don't know what to think of him. I would like to think he's an okay quarterback. He has had a lot of injuries to a lot of main guys these last couple of years, and you certainly have to factor that in. You can't not. But, then you go up against a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who has an awful, awful defense, and you win the game by double digits, but you really don't do anything as far as Wentz goes. So first off, let me ask you, is Carson Wentz the future in Philadelphia? If not, who do you think may be? And secondly, I'm assuming you think the Eagles come out on top here. I could be wrong, but what do you think?
Okay, for Carson Wentz, I don't know what happened to him. Because even last year, I was still like, all right, he struggled a little bit, but I'm like, okay, he's throwing to who knows who. And he's had a bunch of injuries. But then this year, he just isn't playing good. There's a play on Sunday night where he rolled left and there was no one there. And instead of immediately throwing it away, he just like kept drifting left. I'm like, what are you doing? And he got sacked. He's playing like Daniel Jones is right now, which is that they're both mobile quarterbacks who hold the ball for like 10,000 years and take a sack. I don't know what I think he just needs a new scenery because he has the talent. Like before he tore up his knee, that he was going to be MVP and lead them to a Super Bowl, possibly. I don't know what happened with him. As for what you asked about I still think Wentz will do just enough to get them there because the Cowboys are on their third quarterback.
I'm not sure the Cowboys are even better than the Jets without Dak Prescott.
Exactly. Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, that was something that was disgusting. The Giants, I don't know why the Giants won their game against Washington. They should have let them get the 2-point conversion, and then they were messing around trying to beat the Buccaneers. And then Washington, like they're surprising just because I didn't think the defensive line would be that good, but they can get consistent pressure just rushing 4. So in the future, that's nice to look at. But yeah, the Eagles will take this awful. It makes me sick. Nick, someone else talk, please.
Nick, go ahead. Josh is
Washington here. Washington actually has a pretty decent defense, and they got Terry McLaurin, but they're terrible. Cowboys, terrible. Eagles, terrible. Giants, terrible. They're all terrible. Okay, Eagles win the division because Wentz. I'm honestly, I'm going to say it. He's awful. He's not a good quarterback. He shouldn't be their future. I would try to trade him. He was good. Is it because of injuries? I don't know, but he's not good. He turned the ball over 4 times against the New York Giants, for God's sakes. He's not good. I don't care what anybody says. But he's good enough on that Eagles team. They're going to win the division because the Cowboys should have won the division, but Prescott's out. The only thing worthwhile saying about this division is anybody who didn't think Dak Prescott deserves to be the Dallas starting quarterback, and they still don't think that, they're on drugs. This team was bad with him because of that defense. This team is possibly the worst team in all of football without him. He was leading the league in passing a week after he got injured. Yeah. They scored more points in his last fourth quarter, 24, than they have in the last 3 games without him. So I don't care about anything else. Just look at it. Yeah, honestly, the Cowboys, it's not like they weren't offering him money. They offered him a bunch of money and Prescott didn't take it. So this isn't all on the Cowboys. But for anybody who thinks Prescott isn't good, you're wrong. So that's all that needs to be said about this division because nothing else is even worthwhile to talk about. They're so bad.
So the last piece of thing that I want to bring up before we move on to the NFC West here, so many people for so many years trash Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's an awful head coach. They're never going to go anywhere, never going to go anywhere, never going to go anywhere. Now, let me say this. With Dak Prescott being hurt, yeah, it's kind of hard to say the same thing about McCarthy. But even when Prescott was playing, they were scoring a lot of points. But they at the end of the day, they weren't winning the game still. They had won, they've won 2 games with Prescott there, but they were still not looking like a very solid football team.
Okay. I don't think it makes Garrett look better. I just think it shows how awful of a coach Mike McCarthy is. Garrett's not a good coach. McCarthy's an awful coach. I told you this before he got the job. I don't care if he won a Super Bowl, okay? A freaking baby could have won the Super Bowl with the way Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson were balling in 2010. They're a wild card team that just got hot like the Eagles did, and they won it all. Mike McCarthy's a terrible coach. You have Aaron freaking Rodgers, for God's sakes, and you can't even make a Super Bowl in 10 years after they won one. Matt LaFleur's gone there. They're 18-5 with him. Like, McCarthy is just awful. You talk about Adam Gase and Bill O'Brien. Well, McCarthy ain't much better. So I don't think it says much about Garrett. I think it says how awful of a coach Mike McCarthy is, in my honest opinion. And that's not the Viking fan in me. That's just the sports fan in me.
Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, McCarthy's just underperformed with the teams he's had. Like, he had Rodgers all those years. They had the 15-1 year, and then they went and got demolished by the Giants at home. And, like, the Cowboys should be what's their record? They're 2-6. They should be 1-7 because they shouldn't have beaten Atlanta. Arguably, they should be no wins because the game against the Giants, like, they won it because of emotion and stuff, and also because the Giants blew it at the end. So,
well, I mean, if Prescott didn't get hurt, they probably would have won that.
Yeah, true. But even then, it was still a close game. Like, McCarthy just, I don't know. He's just not good.
He's not a good coach. He never has been.
So move over to Josh's division here, NFC West. His Seattle Seahawks out on top, 6-1. Cardinals right behind him at 5-2. Rams 5-3. 49ers 4-4. I know Nick has said this. I've certainly said it. Josh, I don't know about you. I think this division, like we all thought before the season started, had potential to be the most exciting division to watch in football this year. For the most part, it really hasn't disappointed that much. So, Josh, I'll let you start us out here. Seahawks at 6-1. Do you like where they're sitting? And can you see another team potentially passing them?
I don't, because our defense is still just so bad. Like, our pass rush is non-existent, and like Jamal Adams, thankfully he's coming back. I think they said that last week. Jamal Adams has been our most consistent pass rusher. I think he leads the team in sacks, and he hasn't played since week 3, and he's a safety. So, and like people say, oh, like you're still fine. Like, you have an explosive offense. You're 6-1. We barely beat the Vikings. Like, we had 2.
In your defense, the Vikings always come within 3 points of Seattle. They never win, but they always come within 3 points.
Yeah,
always.
Exactly. But like, we barely 2 4th-down conversions to beat the Vikings. We were close in, like, no offense, Lucas, but we were close against the Dolphins. We beat the Cowboys barely. We just all of our games, except for playing the Falcons, so that was an easy game. But even like this last week against the 49ers, we were up like 20 points. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like, my family, we were out and about. I was listening to the radio. I'm like, all right, Dad, you can turn off the radio. We come back home, and it's like, we're only leading by 10. They just got a 2-point conversion. Thankfully, they turned it over. But that's a 1-possession game if the receiver falls in another inch. Like, I don't know why. We keep playing with fire, and like, it cost us against the Cardinals, obviously. And like, once we play against, if we get to the playoffs and we try and do that, I don't know. Like, I trust Russell Wilson. I trust DK. I trust our offense. But all it takes is Russell having 1 or 2 bad plays like he did against the Cardinals. And like, we do that against a better team. Not that the Cardinals aren't good. I think they're good. But we do that in the playoffs, we're screwed. So I like where we're at. I'm still confident. Slightly.
Nick, what are you thinking here?
I got a lot to say about this division. One, I think it's the best division in football. I thought it would be. Honestly, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty much right on in this division. Arizona's a little better than I thought, but I had Seattle winning. I had LA doing good. I had San Francisco getting last, or I think I did, because I didn't expect much from them. And Arizona, we both were high on. I thought they'd be 1 year out. I thought they'd be about 7-9 this year, and then this good next year. But turns out they're already this good this year. I have kind of a dilemma though. After the Vikings, I pretty much cheer for Brady. But then after that, like the Seahawks and the Cardinals are like my third and fourth favorite team. Like when they played against, because I love Russell Wilson, I love Kyler Murray. When they played against each other like 2 weeks ago, it was awful because I couldn't decide who to root for. So that being said, that game specifically, Russell Wilson has never won an MVP. He's never even had a vote, which is just blasphemy. But he's running away with it right now, and I think he's going to get it. If it weren't for the 3 bad interceptions, and I mean bad interceptions he had against Arizona, he'd be way, 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 way up top of the MVP voting. I hope he gets it. He deserves it. And I love my boy Russell Wilson. As far as the division, who will win? Pretty confident Seattle. The fact that Arizona has that 1 win against them definitely doesn't help their cause. But despite how bad that defense is, Russell Wilson gets the job at the end. If you want a good primetime game, just put the Seattle on there, because no matter who they play, it will be a 1-possession game, and it will come down to the fourth quarter, and Russell Wilson will get the job done. They can, and plus, if you give them a lead, Chris Carson and them boys will run out the clock. So I trust Seattle. Coming in playoff time, I'm not sure they can make a Super Bowl run without a pass rushing with that defense. We'll see. But Russell Wilson stays healthy, and come late game, I think maybe the only quarterback will take over him is Patrick Mahomes. But Arizona's really good. I love me some Kyler Murray, and I'm telling you what, in 3 years, besides Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterbacks in the league are going to be in the same division, Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. I'm that high on Kyler Murray already. He's going to be very, very good. And the Rams are like Jekyll and Hyde. They're really, really good, and then they're like, how'd you just lose to this team? But they're going to make the playoffs, and they're probably going to go 10-6. So really good division all around.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this turns out. It's going to be a really exciting division. I do think Seattle will come out on top, but it'll be a heck of a race for that second spot. And who knows? Maybe Seattle drops a game or two. Cardinals, Rams go on a run. You never know. You never know as far as that goes. So I am intrigued to see how this one finishes out. Nick, NFC North, Packers out on top, 5-2, and then the Bears 5-3, Lions 3-4, Vikings 2-5. I'll let you just take it here. 1, are you surprised that the Packers are out on top? And 2, are you surprised that the Vikings have been playing as bad as they are?
2, I'm definitely surprised at the Vikings. I honestly, it's not even the Viking fan in me. I honestly think the Vikings are probably the most disappointing team in football, us and Houston. I mean, most people had us at least going 9-7, 10-6, getting a wild card. A lot of people had us winning the division. I think we went 10-6 last year, 11-5, won a playoff game, pretty much had the same roster. The fact we're this bad is really disappointing. So I'm not that surprised the Packers are winning the division though, because besides the Vikings, I thought they were the only good team in this division. And week 1, I could have totally seen them beating us. And if you told me they're going to beat us week 1, yeah, I'd say there's a good chance you're going to lead the division at this point. I don't see anybody beating them. They're not quite as good as I thought they were 2 weeks ago after what they looked like against Tampa and then losing to us. But the Lions are done. The Lions aren't. It's the Lions, and they just lost Stafford for a while. We're 2-5, and the Bears are about the worst 5-3 football team I've ever seen, and they don't have a quarterback. So the Packers are going to run away with this division. Only question now is, will the Vikings somehow be able to dig out a hole? And if they beat the Bears in 2 weeks, maybe they'll be able to climb back to 500 and get second. We'll see.
Yeah, I am intrigued to see what happens here. I do think the Packers run away with this division. Josh, do you also see the Packers running away, or do you think another team maybe makes a run?
No one's catching them. There's no one. If you could combine all the other teams, because the Bears have a top 3 defense, Kirk Cousins or Stafford, you could pick one or the other. Like, they're both pretty good. Either one of the offenses for the Lions or the Vikings are pretty good. But that's combining 3 teams. And even then, I said the quarterbacks for their teams are meh. The Packers are running away because Aaron Rodgers is angry. He's playing angry. He's talking to the media. He's playing angry, but he's also loose. He's like, last year, like there were some times where you'd see him yelling at the floor. Now they're like chatting. They look like pals. They're gonna be fine. I just really I picked Minnesota to win because I believed they would, and then I like mentioned how the Vikings, like, their cornerbacks were just non-existent, and I didn't think that hurt them that much, but man, just I'm sick of the Packers, but they're gonna win.
This, though. Packers are gonna run away with the division, but they have no chance in the playoffs. I was just thinking at fantasy today, they're 32nd against running backs. Their run defense is abysmal. It's non-existent. It's horrible. The Jets are a better run defense than the Packers, for God's sakes. So the Packers are going to get to the playoffs and get just stomped by somebody, but they're going to make the playoffs easily.
I mean, that's what happened last year. They ran into the 49ers, and Garoppolo didn't have to throw. So.
And Dorton, what's your take? Because granted, not that you expected the Vikings to be bad, you picked us to go 10-6, but you did have us missing the playoffs. So kudos.
Yeah. I mean, I like I said, I had them going 10-6. I thought that they would be better than they are. It's interesting to look at it, how awful they've been, and really, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Vikings ride with how Dalvin Cook is playing. If Dalvin Cook is playing well, the Vikings are probably going to be winning a lot of games.
Yep.
If Dalvin Cook is not playing well, and don't get me wrong, I don't think Kirk Cousins is an awful quarterback by any means, but it's kind of maybe showing that he may not be that good if he has to throw the ball. If Dalvin ain't playing well, he hasn't really been
not the
able
quarterback
to.
For our team with our O-line.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting to see what happens here. If the Bears, who knows? Maybe the Bears go on a run and they make the playoffs. I don't think that'll happen, but
not with their quarterbacks.
We'll have to see. And then the final division here, NFC South, Buccaneers out on top, 6-2, Saints 5-2, Panthers 3-5, Falcons 2-6. As bad as the Vikings have been this year, Nick can kind of live vicariously through the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady with how they're playing. So, Nick, what are you thinking here? Obviously 6-2. He's pulling out one of his 75 bets that he made before the year started.
You can see that? Yeah, I'm going to see how much money I'm going to make when Tampa Bay wins the Super Bowl. Let's see. Where am I here? Well, yeah, so this division, it's obviously between Tampa and New Orleans. Okay, I bet $30 on them. If I win, I get $450 profit, folks. It's happening. Nobody believed me. I'm telling you, this team's probably, I think Seattle's the best team in the NFC right now, or at least they played like it thus far. But Tampa Bay is the most complete team. They might not have Seattle's offense, but they have probably the best pass weapons. Well, debatable. Them and Seattle are pretty even, pass offense. Overall offense, they're pretty even too. Obviously, I think I give Wilson the edge right now over Brady, but let's be honest, Brady's the GOAT, so, I mean, you're not going to, not trust him either. But Tampa's got a better defense. So, I mean, come playoff time, between those two teams, I think, Seattle's currently better, but Tampa Bay's deeper, I think. But as far as this division itself, Tampa and New Orleans play this week. Whoever wins is probably going to win the division. I think Tampa's better. I don't trust Drew Brees. He's just not that great right now. But New Orleans already beat Tampa once, so if they beat him twice, it's going to be hard to overcome that. But I think they're the only two teams in this division even, really worth talking about. The other two are not very good. The Panthers are not going to win 8 games. I'm not going to have to shave my head. And I'm just looking forward to playoff time when it's TB12 versus Russell Wilson in the NFC Championship, and then Thomas Patrick, the GOAT Brady, is going to go get me $450. Unless Patty Mahomes beats him.
Josh, what do you think here? Buccaneers, Saints, one of those teams. Who do you think is going to take the division here?
Taking the division, it's, again, like what Nick was saying, it's going to come up to a toss-up to this upcoming Sunday night. Just real quick, what a Sunday night game. That's going to be awesome.
Oh, it's Sunday night?
Yeah, it's Sunday night. They planned it great. But I just, like Nick, you were saying the Seahawks are the best. I think the Buccaneers are the best team in the NFC. Like, their record, like, the Seahawks are playing better.
I think they're definitely more complete.
They're way more complete. And, record-wise, and, the Seahawks, playing better. But, again, like I said, we've been playing with fire. Tampa Bay blew out the Packers. And again, the Packers we just said, like, I don't know, we're iffy on them, but still, they destroyed them just all around. The Buccaneers just have it. Like, I had their ceiling as 14-2. Like, I saw the Saints win the division because I thought Drew Brees wouldn't look as old as he is right now.
Yeah, he can't even throw downfield.
I think, and maybe, like, even if the Saints do sneak out and win the division, I have more faith in the Buccaneers just making it to the Super Bowl, because and they added Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown, like, people are like, all right, he got cut by
who can play this week.
Exactly. And, like, people are like, oh yeah, he got cut by the Raiders because he was a knucklehead, and then he went to the Patriots and he played 1 week and was cut. He was a knucklehead with the Raiders. With the Patriots, he had calmed down. The only reason they cut him was because of legal issues, which are a completely different story. But we'll just focus on the sports thing here, and I think Brown's living with Brady or something, and Brady seems to have gotten through to Brown. And if you can calm him down, it's over.
The only reason he's there is because of Brady. That's the only reason he was with New England. So clearly Brady likes him, and they already have Godwin and Evans and all sorts of guys. So all it's going to do is make him better. And just one thing, I know I already got my turn, but you mentioned, Seattle and Tampa again. Like I said, I think Seattle right now has played better. I think Tampa Bay is more complete. But yeah, let's just say they play each other in the NFC Championship, which I think is going to happen. Now that I think of it, I do think Seattle's good. But Seattle's pass rush, as you mentioned, is really, really bad. Well, the one way to beat Brady is pressure, especially pressure up the middle. Well, if you don't pressure Brady, you will not beat him. You won't. And Seattle's not going to pressure him. So I just don't see them in a game between each. If they meet in the playoffs, I don't see how Seattle's going to beat them unless Russell Wilson just plays the game of his life. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of question marks still left as far as the rest of the season goes for a lot of different teams. How the playoffs are going to stack out here. I'm here for it. I've been saying since day one before the season started, I think this year has a chance to be one of the most interesting seasons as far as NFL has gone in the past. In the past, it's been very predictable for the most part as far as who's going to be good, who isn't going to be good. And to some extent, that's kind of how it is right now still. But there's teams in the mix that maybe in the past didn't quite think they would. We'll see. We'll see what happens here the rest of the season. But that was our mid-season review here as far as the NFL goes. And with that, that's the end of our show. Did you guys have anything else that you want to bring up as far as sports topics go that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
One thing. So, Josh, who's better, DK or Lockett? I'm taking DK personally because he's more consistent. I mean, Lockett's going to get you that 50 fantasy point game like he got Mitchell. But DK is more consistent.
Like, Lockett, as an overall complete player, like, Lockett is better because he can run better routes. And, like, even as a small guy, even in college, like, he was mossing dudes.
Where did he go to college?
Kansas State. But there's a reason Tyler Lockett is Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, all 6'10", 300 pounds, 0.0% body fat. He's getting comparisons to Calvin Johnson. Like, I'm not saying that Calvin Johnson is still way up there, Randy Moss still way up there, but like if DK keeps going, who knows? Like, that's the thing. Like, his ceiling is just way higher than Lockett's.
Oh yeah. All right, I like that take. Yeah. I think DK Metcalf and Kenny Golladay have the biggest potential of any wide receiver in football. I think look out 2-3 years, they might be the best two.
Josh, any other sports takes or anything you wanted to bring up here before we wrap things up?
I'd just like to say real quick to Justin Herbert, I am a Chargers fan because I was born in San Diego, and like I'm still mad at how the whole thing was handled and how they left. Justin Herbert, I wasn't a fan of yours in college, well, because you played at Oregon, and also because I didn't think you were good. Now you're good.
He's
so
good.
Thank you for being good. I didn't see it. I just always thought that as a 4-year starter, like he never progressed or he never went up like this. He was at least like, a little bit. But man, just the jump he took in an off season with COVID, where he didn't really practice, with just a bunch of stuff being thrown in minutes before a game because a doctor punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung. Like Herbert's played great. Like there are sometimes like Herbert will show like he's a rookie and it'll be bad, and his final two throws against the Saints were awful. But I'm so happy we got Herbert. So Herbert, I'm sorry, but also thank you.
And he can run too. I mean, he's mobile too.
Yeah. But anyways, folks, like I mentioned, that's the end of the show. Josh, I guess I'll give the stage to you now. Is there anything that you want to plug? I know obviously you have a blog that you write some sports about. So if you want to plug that or anything else, where can they follow you on Twitter too?
All right, so on Twitter, I'm at Josh_Ray, RAY_A. And then in the link in my bio, there's a link in my bio for my sports blog, Sports by JR. It's mostly football because that's what I really like. I've occasionally touched on other things. You can follow my Twitter and see me like just randomly tweet about a random college football game or NFL game or just any random game.
World Series.
Yeah, and oh, Lucas, real quick, I was gonna say that while I do love Burrow, I think Tua, when you look at them at the end of their careers, Tua will be the slightly better quarterback.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love listening to Tua.
I think Tua has. This is what I've been saying since this draft started, and I don't want to get too long of a tangent because we are at the end of the show. I think Justin Herbert was the most NFL ready one, and I've been saying that, and it's kind of showed he's been the most NFL ready one.
Should be.
But I think the highest potential ceiling, I've been saying it's Tua. I think the Dolphins took a chance on him as far as the injuries and stuff go. But if he stays healthy his whole career, I think he can be healthy. I think he has potential to be I'm not going to – don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say he's going to be one of the best of all time. But I think as far as this rookie quarterback class goes, I do think Tua has a chance to be the best one out of the ones that were picked.
So far, it's looking like a good class from what we've seen of them. So.
But anyways, folks, so that is this show. If you want to follow us on Twitter, certainly follow myself at Lucas_Dorton, capital D. Got the ESPN,
there we go.
ESPN cap and the Miami Heat cap there from him. Follow myself there. Follow Nick at Doetkott. Follow our Twitter at DND_podcast, capital D's, capital P for that. Also, give a look out for the podcast, Armchair Analyst podcast. Nick and I were guests on that podcast not too long ago here. So if you want to follow them on Twitter, at AA Podcasts, they do a great job over there. Like I mentioned, we were guests there, had a great time. They put out great content. So certainly follow them, follow what they're doing, as well as us too, and subscribe to both of ours. You can follow that, so that would be awesome if you could give us both some help there. But anyways, folks, thank you for listening to this episode of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate Podcast. Josh, thank you for joining us again. Certainly have you on in the future. But as for Josh, Nick, and myself, until next time, we are out.